Hello everyone, today we are talking about the Boston Celtics and most notably, why have the Boston Celtics had such a bad season? This is a team that was supposed to be one of the top teams in the East this year. Maybe not at the level of the Nets, especially once they acquire James Harden. Maybe not at the level of the Bucks, and maybe not even at the level of the 76ers. But they should have been right in behind those teams, no doubt about it. With Miami, with Toronto, with Indiana. And for me, those were the 7 teams I expected to be the locks in the playoffs this season, as much as you could consider anything a lock in what has been a very weird season with cancellations of the virus, all of these sorts of things. But as of right now, out of those locks, the 76ers, Nets, and Bucks are the top 3, as I would expect that they would be. Miami are 4, and the 4 seed after a bad start of the season. But then you have the Hawks, Hornets, and Knicks, and then the Celtics are sitting in the 8 seed with a sub-500 record. And so today, that is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about how the Celtics have gotten to this point, why they've gotten to this point, and what they could potentially do at the trade deadline to make some improvements on this team, on this record, and see their way back up to the top half of the Eastern Conference and make a push to make their 4th Eastern Conference Finals in the last 5 years. But that being said, if you guys do like this type of content, consider subscribing. I upload 5 to 7 NBA content videos a week, from discussions like this on teams, from players, trade news, trade rumors, all these types of things. All the NBA content is all here. So consider subscribing if that is what you're looking for. And if you guys do enjoy the video, feel free to leave a like down below. With that being said, let's get right into it. And so, firstly, when we're talking about the Boston Celtics this season, we have to consider the fact that they were without some key players for a considerable amount of time. Some games were canceled, and then they just were without some key players, most notably Jason Tatum for a stretch of time. He did have the virus, and he still is, or at least still was, definitely struggling with the after effects of the virus and struggling to have his fitness up, his health up, and just no doubt the rust that comes along with not playing basketball for a couple of weeks. He last played before he got the virus on January 8th and then didn't play it until the 25th, and there's no doubt that missing that amount of time is going to impact you. But that being said, he came back and dropped a 24-point game, shooting 10 of 21 from the field. But there was definitely times where he struggled, and he publicly said that he was struggling stamina-wise, fitness-wise, these types of things. And it shows. I mean, if you look at his, and pardon me, that was February that I was, or no, it was January, my bad. It was January that he got the virus. But if you look at his efficiency splits from January and March compared to February when he got back from the virus, he shot 40% from the field and 31.6% from the field in the month of February, compared to March where he was shooting 48.5% from the field and 39.6% from deep, and the months before he got the virus, 44.6% from deep, which is absolutely outrageous, making over 3 a game and shooting 50% from the field. So there's definitely some effects there of rust, and that obviously had a big impact on the Boston team. And you could say that Jason Tatum hasn't been quite as good as he was last year. Towards the back end of last year, we were talking about Jason Tatum strictly on the back half of the season being one of the best players in the league, no doubt about it, and reaching that superstar type level. We haven't quite seen that from him this year. There seems to be a bit more hesitancy and not quite as high level production, but there's no doubt he has still been an all-star caliber player, and a very good one at that. Most notably this season, though, has been the increased production of Jaylen Brown. And he took a massive step forward last year after a step back in year 3, and even more so this year he has improved on a scoring front. His efficiency has gone up, his amount of shots he's taken has gone up, his playmaking has drastically improved, his assist numbers have nearly doubled this year, and you could argue that he is the best playmaker on this Boston team, averaging about 4 assists per game, shooting 38% from deep, 48.6% from the field, and putting up 24.5 at night. But the statement of Jaylen Brown being the best playmaker on this team, arguably, is an issue. Because Jaylen Brown is not a playmaker. He is a very good wing defender with very good ability to score the basketball. And if he can playmate when he drives and cuts and creates opportunities for others via attracting the defense, then that's great. That's what you want from elite scorers that drive to the rim and make the defense help. But Jaylen Brown, as his skill set is right now, should not be your primary creator on a team. And there's a lot of ball stoppers on this team. A lot of guys that like to ISO. Kemba Walker, Jalen Tatum, or Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, most notably. And that's an issue. Jaylen Brown, not as much as the other two, but he still does have his ISO reps from time to time. But that's an issue when your three best players are all primarily ISO players. Because that means that your ball movement, your flow of your offense is going to struggle, and that's something we've noticed with Boston this year. And I think they're similar to the Clippers in that scenario, in which they could really benefit from a true playmaking, team-oriented point guard in that sense. Someone like a Kyle Lowry, someone like, now I'm not saying in current day for production, but examples like the Mike Conley in his prime, or Rajon Rondo, Chris Paul. Guys like that that are very team-oriented, that are willing to set up the team and try and make those types of plays and get the assists, all that type of stuff. But that team doesn't have that, and I don't know if there's a way for them to acquire it. The only way in which they're going to acquire that is if they acquire someone like Lonzo Ball. And this is possible. Maybe they package a move, they move Marcus Smart along with something else, or their trade exception and some picks and some young players, and they try and get Lonzo Ball. But outside of that, this team just it lacks that natural playmaker. And there's a lot of talent on this team, right? Jason Tatum is great, he's an all-star. Jaylen Brown is great, he's an all-star. Arguably, both of them are all NBA players this season. Kemba Walker is, I don't know. Kemba Walker has not been good since he's come back from injury this year, no doubt about it, right? And part of it was going to be rust, coming back after not playing so long. But he's now played 24 games, right? And we're still not seeing anything great from him. In the month of March, he's shooting 39% from the field, putting up 16.5 points per game. And for the money he is getting paid and the role that he needs to be able to produce on this team, that's just not good enough. It's just not. He's getting 5.2 assists per game, which isn't great either. He's not being an elite playmaker by any stretch. He's not being a bad one, but he's not exactly. He's never been a point guard who looks to be a pass-first guy. He's always been a scorer, right? That's just what he's done. And specifically more so in Charlotte because he needed to. But that's just become the type of point guard he is now. And so he's always going to be a score-first guy. So when he's not shooting efficiently, it really hurts the team. And for him to not even be shooting 40% from the field right now, it's tough for the success of this team. Marcus Smart has done his thing. Of course, he's missed some games due to injury this year. His three-point shooting isn't quite where he would like it to be, but his defense is always there. His effort and his energy and his cohesiveness, his ball movement that he brings as well. Not that he's a pure point guard, but he is definitely not a ball stopper. He's a ball mover, and is very good for the offense in that sense. And so he brings a lot of positives to the team, and there's no doubt he is very impactful. Robert Williams has been a great surprise, specifically in the last month and a half. In the month of March, he's shooting 76% from the field, which we should expect because he only really dunks or finishes around the rim. But nonetheless, 76%, regardless of what shots you take, you can't be mad at. 9 rebounds per game, 2.3 assists, 3.3 blocks per game, and 11.4 points per game. Robert Williams has been great and looks like it's probably the center of the future for them. And I would argue he needs to be given more minutes because I think he is their guy at the center position. Daniel Tice has had a decent season. Tristan Thompson, not bad for his age, although he's definitely not as good as he has been. But I think Robert Williams is the guy at the center position for them moving forward. Still very much think we need to talk about the Gordon Hayward this offseason for a second, right? The Boston Celtics could have had Miles Turner as opposed to this trade exception. Now, this trade exception might help land them Lonzo Ball, might help land them someone very impactful to this team. I don't know who it may be, Harrison Barnes, whoever it may be, right? But the fact that they could have had Miles Turner at center position, a position that is one of their weakest, minus a playmaking point guard, and just general depth. But as far as the starting lineup goes, that is definitely their weakest position. And they could have had someone there, and someone who's had a very good season, someone who's had arguably the best season of their career, a very good three-point shooter who can space the floor, can move the ball fairly well for a center, has elite rim protection, which would have made this defense so much better than it already is. But they didn't. They wanted another piece. They didn't think Miles Turner was enough. And so now they're left with the trade exception. And we've seen in previous years, Danny Ainge seems to be always very close to making moves. But he often doesn't make those moves. He seems to be hesitant to make the big move and give away his assets, and that's resulted now in the misuse of a lot of first-round picks in the last couple of years, which I've talked about. And sure, they've gotten some talent from those, but not much. Robert Williams seems to be the only real piece right now. And those could have been packaged into a trade to make this team a lot better from all the first-round picks they've acquired in the last few years, specifically via the Brooklyn trade with Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce years ago. But they just haven't capitalized on that as well as you would have liked to. And so if I'm Boston, and specifically if I'm a Boston fan, I really hope that they use this trade exception to improve this team, and they don't just let this trade exception go to waste and not get used. But that was the only piece they got back from just letting Gordon Hayward walk. Considering you could have had Miles Turner, you need to use that trade exception to be able to acquire something. If you have to package picks and a couple of young players in there, whether that's Romeo Langford in a first or whatever it may be, that needs to be used to improve this team now. Because this Boston team is good enough to start winning now, where they should be on paper. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Marcus Smart, Kemba Walker, Robert Williams, Tristan Thompson, Daniel Tice, Peyton Pritchard's been very good. Semi Ojeleye is a solid bench piece. This team has the pieces to be competitive. And if they can get either a center to very much raise their ceiling, although I don't know if that really exists on the market right now via trade, other than Rashawn Holmes potentially. But most notably, I believe a playmaking point guard. I mean a pure playmaking point guard. You need someone who, sure, they can still be a scorer and someone who wants to score, and they can put up numbers similar to Kemba Walker. But they need to be someone who is a ball mover and someone that can inject that ball movement and that mentality into their offense. Because I think this team, when they can increase that ball movement, will just generate more open looks for them, more open shots, creates more opportunities for Tatum, more opportunities for Brown, more opportunities for Robert Williams. And I think that could be really valuable. In saying that, I don't want to get the idea that I think Boston is this team that is only ever running ISOs, because that's not true. But I think this team has the potential to just be so much better if they're not focused on ISOs. Sure, you're going to have your ISO sets in the fourth quarter when you need a bucket. Tatum or Brown are going to do their thing, or Kemba's going to do his thing, whatever it is, right? But I think in the general course of the game, this team just has so much attacking, get to the rim perimeter talent, and then knockdown shooting off of the help defense there, that if you can have Jason Tatum attack, and then Brown and Kemba and Marcus Smart ready to shoot, and then you get Robert Williams there, offensive rebounder, get lobs, there's just so much potential on kick and drive and kick and drive and kick and drive on this team that I think this is something they need to push. I think that added playmaking is something they really need, similar to what the Clippers need in that sense as well. To add to their duo of George and Kawhi, Boston need to add that Tatum and Brown, and I think that would really help improve this team. As much as I am a Toronto Raptors fan and I do not like the Boston Celtics, I really like who the Boston Celtics have on their roster. I'm a big fan of Jaylen Brown specifically. I like Jason Tatum's game. I like Robert Williams' game. I really hope that this team does make a move at the deadline to improve their roster and see themselves into a successful postseason run. With that being said, that is my thoughts right now on the Boston Celtics. If you guys did enjoy the video, feel free to leave a like down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. I thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and I will see you guys in the next one.